Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's subbit on this Tuesday, the 19th of November 2024. Today, I would like to talk to you about something which is really terribly misunderstood by a lot of Muslims and also a lot of people of other faiths alike. The topic that is often misunderstood and oversimplified is the meaning of the word kuffar. Now, there's been a video that's been circulating on social media certainly over the past few days. I don't know for exactly how long. And it is of a man and his two daughters speaking with American accents by what appears to be an American house. So it appears to be in the US. And he is telling them, do not act like the kuffar. Do not copy the kuffar. And then he's talking about this as if it's referring to Jews and Christians. So I think it's time that we have a little clarification on what this word kuffar really means. Is it simply a label for people who do not believe in Islam, as some people think? A lot of people think it just means disbeliever, and indeed today that is how the word is often used. But is that the real meaning, or does it have a deeper moral and ethical dimension, which clarifies what is meant by the term kuffar? To discuss this, and so we can understand this, we have to understand the historical and the context of the Quran. Unpack how this word is used and what are the attributes the word kuffar is applying to. What is the actual difference between disbelief and immorality? And why people who are ethical, moral, and decent, regardless of their beliefs, even if they hold no faith, should not be lumped into the same category as kuffar. So let's understand the basis of this word. The root of the word kuffar is the letters KFR, the Arabic equivalents. And this root, it means to cover or to conceal. So kuffar is not merely disbelief, it is active rejection paired with immoral or unjust behavior, or both, because usually immoral and unjust behavior, they go together. We have to understand that when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about the kuffar, or when the Quran refers to the kuffar, it is referring to people who lived in pre-Islamic Arabia, and they practiced things like infanticide. They killed girl children. They killed them. They oppressed people. They practiced tribalism. They murdered people without good cause. They practiced all manner of things which most societies today would regard as absolutely wicked and unjust. It doesn't matter the faith of those people. They will all regard these things as wicked or unjust unless they themselves happen to be wicked or unjust individuals. So when the Quran uses the term kuffar, it's not really talking about people who simply do not believe whether there is a God or not, or whether Muhammad is a prophet or not. It is talking about people who opposed justice. Because what characterized the Prophet Muhammad's mission? It was a push against the Jahiliyyah, against the prevalence of ignorance and injustice and oppression and murder within his society. He was calling for justice. He was calling for fairness. He was calling for people to treat each other with kindness and respect. And there were people in that society who actively opposed this. And they thought that what the Prophet was doing was wrong. It is they who are being referred to as kuffar. Now, there's quite a difference between someone like that and someone like, let's say, Professor Richard Dawkins or Sir David Attenborough, who are atheists, who do not believe in God, but are clearly very moral and ethical human beings who believe in justice, who believe in fairness, and believe in treating people properly and with respect. So how can they be lumped together with the Kuffar, who practiced infanticide, murder, oppression? Think about this. Also today, many of these misguided Muslims refer to people of the Ahlul Kitab, that is a term meaning peoples of the book, as if they were kuffar. The term Ahlul Kitab in the Quran is referring to the Jews, the Christians, and other groups that were given revelations by God and had a book, Kitab being a book of guidance, of divine inspiration. So while Islam does place immense importance on belief, it also places even more importance on ethics, morality, and justice. Belief is seen as foundational to this, but righteous actions, amal salih, are equally emphasized. The Quran often pairs faith and good deeds as the hallmark of success. But faith and good deeds, like halal and tayyib, not just halal, not just the meat or the food or whatever it is lawful, but it is also tayyib, it's also pure. Not just belief, but belief should come with actions. If you really believe in God, you should be a decent human being as well. How can you be a Muslim or even a Christian or a Jew or any of these religions if you're not a decent human being? So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pairs these things. So for instance, if we go to Surah Al-Buruj, Surah 85, and verse 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, surely as for those who believed and did righteous deeds, for them are gardens beneath which rivers flow. This is the great attainment. Allah pairs belief, those who believed, with and those who did righteous deeds, those who do righteous deeds. So actions, deeds. So you got belief and deeds. It's not just belief. And the Quran also recognizes and praises those, regardless of faith, who uphold justice, kindness, and compassion. And we can see this in Surah Al-Nisa in Ayah 58, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, surely Allah commands you to pay back the trusts to their owners, and that when you judge among men, you judge with justice. Surely what a good advice does Allah advise you with. Indeed, Allah is hearing and seeing. So Allah commands you to pay back trusts. If someone entrusts you with something, you return it to them, you pay it back to them. And when you judge between people, you judge with justice. It's not just about belief. So that also means that if people, they have these qualities of justice and fairness, then Allah is going to treat them fairly. And also in Surah Al-Maidah, Surah 5, Ayah 8, we read, O you who believe, stand up firmly for the sake of Allah. To what? To bear witness with justice. And let not the enmity of a people carry you away from being just. Be just, because that is nearer to piety, and fear Allah. Surely Allah knows what you do. So you see here, O you who believe, it's immediately followed with stand up firmly for the sake of Allah to bear witness with justice. The emphasis is on justice. The emphasis is on the content of our character. Not simply whether we believe, but on the content of our character. Are we just? Are we fair? Are we decent? Are we moral? Are we ethical? Or are we all the opposite of those things? Are we immoral? Are we unethical? Are we unfair? Are we unjust? Allah loves the just and the fair, and Allah hates injustice and immorality. And indeed, those who have read other scriptures than the Quran will read even in the other scriptures how Allah emphasizes the importance of justice and morality and fairness. This is a universal thing you find across all of the scriptures. And then you have certain individuals within the time of the Prophet Muhammad who were, the Prophet Muhammad even supported and praised and recognized because of their justice and fairness. Like, for instance, the King Najashi, who was of the Abyssinians, today's Ethiopia, who supported the early Muslims and granted them refuge and sanctuary from their enemies. And also ethical non-Muslims in Mecca who were allies of the Prophet and supported him, even though they were not Muslims. And they were never referred to as kafirs because they didn't have that characteristic, they didn't have the other characteristics that characterize a kafir. Because kufr is a moral and ethical failure. The Quran critiques not just disbelief, but arrogance, injustice, and oppression. For instance, in Surah 40, we read in Ayah 56, Surah 40, yep. In Ayah 56, surely, as for those who dispute with regard to the signs of Allah without any authority which has come to them, there is nothing but pride in their hearts, which they shall never attain to. Therefore, seek refuge with Allah. Surely He is all hearing, all seeing. Without any authority which has come to them, there is nothing but pride in their hearts. This means people who are arrogant. They are arrogant people. They are not humble people. So if a person is humble, that quality does not apply to them. And injustice, which we'll read about in Surah 67, Surah Al-Mulk, Ayah 6. Bear with me a sec. Surah 67, 76, wrong one. 67. Ayah 6. And for those who disbelieve in their Lord, there is nothing. Sorry. Yeah. 67. Yeah. Indeed, the disbelievers are ever to their Lord ungrateful. Where is that? Okay, but then, indeed, the disbelievers ever to their Lord are ungrateful and they deny His favor. So this is injustice that is highlighted here, and oppression in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 42. Here we are. And mix not the truth with falsehood, and knowingly not conceal the truth knowingly. This is oppression. Oppression, all kinds of tyranny and oppression are matched with people in charge who are keeping people away from the truth and are obfuscating it. This is a clear characteristic of kufr. Now, the problem is today, a lot of people are not scholars of Islam, And even amongst people who are in scholarly positions or should be scholars, people who are actually senior imams and sheikhs within communities, not all of them are as scholarly as they should be. And they haven't really analyzed these points. And so people are also lazy. And so they just talk about disbelievers as kuffar and like labeling people. And this is deeply problematic because the Quranic term kuffar is referring not just to people who don't believe, but people who are arrogant, people who are unjust, people who oppress. This is serious. This is different. People who are arrogant, unjust, and oppress may or may not be affiliated with a religious belief, may or may not claim to believe in God. There are Muslims who have those characteristics, people who claim to be Muslims and they do exactly those things, such as people in ISIS. And at the same time, there are people who are Christians, people who are Jews, people who are Hindus and Sikhs, who are very humble, very kind, very just, very loving. How can they be lumped together as if they are the same when clearly they are not the same? And they are not. And so there's an overriding thing within Islam where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes justice and fairness. We're commanded to be just and fair, even towards those who oppress us or oppose us. Faith is important, but so is morality and ethics. A just ethical atheist or a person of another faith is closer to the Quranic idea of righteousness than an unjust believer or even someone who claims to be a Muslim but carries all of those qualities associated with the kuffar. Allah tells us in the Quran, and do not let the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness. And indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds, they will have their reward with their Lord, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 62. And that we have honored the children of Adam, Surah Al-Isra, that's Surah 17, ayah 70. So to wrap up, I hope we've been able to shed some light on the true meaning of the term kuffar and the importance of understanding it and its context. This is not a blanket term for all non-Muslims or those who don't share our beliefs. Instead, it reflects a rejection of not just faith, but also of justice, morality, and gratitude towards Allah. Islam teaches us to engage with others through justice, compassion, and fairness. Whether someone is a Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, or of another faith, or even an atheist, what truly matters is the contents of their character and their actions. Think about it. If someone is a kind, decent, caring person, is a just person or a fair person, you can quite happily live with that person as a neighbor. Doesn't matter their faith. You will never have problems with them or nothing serious. If someone is an arrogant, oppressive, tyrannical, hateful person who's unjust, how can you live comfortably with them, even if they share your faith? As we navigate this diverse world, let's strive to uphold the values that Islam emphasizes: kindness, respect, and an openness to understanding others. At the end of the day, it's not about labels. It's about living in a way that reflects the loving kindness and justice of Allah. Before we use terms like kuffar, let's ask ourselves, are we upholding the justice, loving kindness, and fairness that Islam commands us to embody? Let's strive to understand people for their actions and their character, not just their labels. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.